I just can't tell you how thrilled I am. Because I've tried really hard to listen to all of this debate. We're now, I think, we're more than a week into the debate on this bill. And I have tried to listen to it on the tannoy if I was back at the annex, and if not, I have tried to follow along by reading the Hansard. I cannot believe I did that, but I tried. So, currently we are speaking to the government amendment, which is on the floor with no sub-amendments currently. Yes, thank you very much. And it doesn't seem to me that anybody's actually spoken directly to the government amendments that are on the floor. So I'd like to do that. Thanks. And then once the amendment has been dealt with, I'd like the opportunity to, I'll seek the Speaker's permission to stand again and just speak more generally on the clause debate in Committee of the Whole. Okay, so going back, I was going through my file and I'm noticing that, you know, I started to collect emails and letters and such all from people back in the summer, which makes sense because the minister put this on the floor in the spring session so that there would be the opportunity for people to give him some feedback to the bill, and thus all the wonderful people that I've had an opportunity to correspond with. But in listening to the debate and reading the correspondent, these are the issues that I've been hearing over and over again. The question of need, the question of crisis, the question of public consultation, question of cost paid by others. I think we could refer to that now as the Lexis argument, the reliability of the line, and the question of whether the lines are for us or for export. So essentially, and there's been sort of sub-questions there about how fast does this need to proceed, now I can't read my writing, how fast, who pays, who decides. So as I see it, those are the issues that are live in this particular discussion. And so what we saw coming forward in the government debate was, I just said I don't like to wear the glasses, an attempt, I think, to address some of the criticism that had been leveled over the summer, and indeed some of the issues that I just highlighted in that sort of shopping list. So the first is Section A, which was dealing with the needs question, as I understand it. And I'm sure if I'm wrong, the Minister will be happy to correct me. He certainly didn't hold back from correcting anyone else. But I think what I see in the government's attempt to correct this is that we didn't really correct the problem in this amendment. And I think the bill continues to bypass the needs identification process. So the changes that are being proposed by the government don't actually do anything to address that concern. So we have the original wording that the Alberta Utilities, where am I here? Commission Act does not apply to critical transmission infrastructure. Now we have a sub-amendment here that's being put in under Section 2, which is being added under the original section. But it clarifies essentially that other hearings are still in play, that they remain, that they're accessible. Such as the citing of the lines, and the minister's been very clear that that's available, continues to be available. But it's not what's being addressed here, and the section actually only deals with the AUC's role, independent of government, to assess the need for the transmission lines. So if the Commission cannot give consideration under 17.1 to whether the critical transmission infrastructure, which is a term I keep seeing coming up, then so if the Commission can't give consideration under 17.1 to whether that critical transmission infrastructure is required to meet provincial needs, then 17.1 itself no longer applies. It should be as simple as that. So I'm arguing that there's no substantive difference made to Bill 50 by what we see in what we're calling Amendment 1. If I can go on to Amendment 2, which is amending Section 2 sub 6, appearing, let me get my, oh, please don't let me have marked up two different bills. Appears on the bottom of page 7 if you have a paper copy of the bill. Otherwise, it's essentially appearing under subsection 9. And what's happening here is there's a whole other piece being added in on stage developments. 41.4, the previous section was 41.3. So this is a whole big section that gets stuck into the bill as an amendment. And what we've got here is mostly around that same, that language, critical transmission infrastructure, CTI, and allows, it's subject to regulations to specify and make available to the public the milestones, public milestones that the independent system operator can use to determine the timing of the stages of the expansion of the terminals. But what's missing here is what the timing is. So it's one thing to come forward in the Act and say, all right, we're going to give stages. We're going to implement stages into the bill or milestones into the bill. Fair enough. But part of this was the issue around a sort of larger understanding of timing. So if you tell me that you're going to do this in stages, but you don't tell me how far apart the stages are, they could be a week apart, a month apart. And I don't mean to be frivolous, but quite genuine in saying you haven't resolved the problem. To tell me that this is going to be staged and then not tell me what the increments are in the staging, it's not helpful. It doesn't move the issue ahead, or it doesn't resolve the issue that people were concerned about. And then it goes, so it talks about those milestones. The second piece of it is that the facilities that are referred to shall be developed in stages according with subsection 3. And subsection 3 talks about the schedule shall be developed first, may initially be energized at a 240 kV, and the ISO shall make regulations specify, et cetera, and all of that. So it says it's going to be staged and then doesn't tell us how far apart or even give us an example. Is it a year? Is it 5-year increments? Nothing. So if you don't give me those increments, it didn't make this meaningful. So that's not going to help. Moving on to the next section, which would appear as Amendment C, which for people following along on the paper bill appears on page 10. And again, it's another whole piece that gets inserted. So it's following under Section 2 sub 12 B. V4, and we're inserting section V5. And this talks about the establishment of a committee with the ISO, representatives of customers and other persons determined by the regulation, which again just gives us no detail, to provide records to customers in relation to construction of transmission facilities. This one, I think, is getting a little closer to what I was looking for. In that, and it's supposed to be giving these records in relation to cost, scope, and construction schedules of the transmission facilities.